Yeah, there we go. There we go. Boom, we're here. Housekeeping. So, if you are listening to the podcast, watch it. Subscribe on YouTube, Big Moo TV. If you are listening to the podcast, also rate, subscribe, and share. If you, I'm upgrading my coaching and doing a lot more with my coaching, sober lifestyle, business coaching. So reach out go to bigmoodcoach.com and you see everything that I do. But we're here, man, recording on a Sunday. This will come out on a Tuesday. Matt would probably say not to say that, but I don't give a fuck. It's fine. We're recording on a Sunday, Matt. It's different, and it's in the afternoon. It's a whole different energy. At least for me, I meditated before this. That's why I wanted to push it back. Need to meditate before I do this. But I used to smoke cigarettes off the floor, guys. Yeah, and out of a random ashtray. Like if I was walking like in the city and ran out of cigarettes and had like blood seeping through my shirt from like shooting dope in like some random bathroom, I would be like, oh, I need a cigarette, and like go into some random ashtray and smoke a cigarette out of there. So COVID, not worried. Not too worried, bud. Not too worried. I am, but like also I'm not. You know? If something was gonna get me, it would have got me. No, I'm just kidding. With that logic, COVID will probably get me. With that logic. So what's been going on? Dylan's here. Dylan moved here. Dylan is my best friend growing up. We shot dope together. It's a fucked up story. Let's tell a fucked up story. So I was doing dope. Someone bought dope from the same guy as me. He ended up passing away from the dope that he picked up. I ended up doing dope all night. I'm looking at Matt right now. Doing dope all night. Waking up to fucking phone calls like, yo, homeboy's dead, dude. What? So I got on a flight, flew to Denver with Dylan, was like, I'm going to get clean. I'm going to change my life. And I ended up shooting dope for like 10 days in Denver. Story goes deeper. So I run out of money on my last day. Run out of money. I'm getting sick. Dylan's driving me to the airport. I'm getting sick as I get to the airport. I'm like sweaty. And from Denver to New York is like 4 hour flight, 3.5. 4 hour flight. And so I'm on the plane and I'm getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And sometimes when you're withdrawing from opiates, you come in your pants or you come really fast. It's interesting. So I'm sitting on the plane, like, so the water's coming out of my eyes because that's what happens, and my mouth is watering, and I'm sweating, and I'm like, flu symptoms, sick, you know? And I'm sleeping, and I had a wet dream next to some lady and whoever else was sitting next to me, full cum in my pants. Guess what I did after that? My unemployment hit right when I got off of the plane, and I was... Of course, 4 hours ago in Denver, I committed that I was not going to do heroin anymore. I was already sick. But when my unemployment hit, I got in a yellow cab right out of the airport, went to the projects, copped some more dope. That was what my life was like, bruh. Isn't it amazing? Wild. Wild story. Wild story. And when I talk about all the friends who have died, there's a lot. Dude, people are dying, man. People are dying, and That's the thing. You never know. It's the same kind of thing with COVID, though. You never know if it's going to be you. You don't know. Like everybody's physiology is different. Some people shoot dope for 30 years and don't die. Like Dylan. He got clean last year and just didn't die. He just happened to not, But then some of us, like I have friends who shot dope for 3 months and died, only, or you know what I mean? Or did pills only and died. So it's interesting, man. I got out before the fentanyl game. We were doing heroin. I got out before the fentanyl game, but wild. Now I can I'm going to start telling those stories, some of those stories from that time, because statute of limitations is up. It's been 7 years I've been sober, and more than 7 years since crimes were committed. I didn't rape anybody or kill anybody, so it's not like stories like that, but just wild fight stories that I was seen. Yo, it was fucking insane. It was insane. But I'm not gonna get myself in trouble. I'm not that stupid, not that dumb. But I will share more about these things because, and you can only express. You could express how bad it was so much, but when you look at me, you don't think, when you look at me, Benny or Jesse, or any of the addict people I bring on here, like, you don't look at us and think like fucking gnarly stories. Like, you think like, oh, you hear it. It's like almost somebody else is telling it. It's like somebody else's life. You get what I mean? It's like I'm telling, even for myself, it feels like somebody else's life I'm talking about. It doesn't feel like my own life. But I try not to tell those stories in depth, even at meetings. I tell those stories in like brushstrokes. You know what I mean? Like I'll tell like, this is the kind of person that I was, brushstroke, and then this is what my life looks like now. To give a comparison, we did a podcast in our early podcasting days. We talked about why am I so happy comparatively to like the average person who's like seemingly has a great life. Why am I so happy just to be alive? And it's because we have perspective, and I try to provide that on here. I provided a little bit, like a little bit, but I should tell some more crazy story. I'll tell another story. And I recorded this on another podcast, but my friend Vinny died right in the beginning of COVID, and very sad. This is not a throwaway friend. This is a friend, taught me how to drive stick, would ride around with me smoking blunts every day, like was a homie, like was part of the, when you're kids, if like your crew of people, he was a major part of the crew, and he was like 4 or 5 years older than me. So he just experienced a lot and like sold drugs a lot. And we fucked with him, and we were not good. We were in New York, you're from the East Coast. We shit on each other. In California, when I fuck with people, they're like, why do you hate me? And I'm like, no, dude, I like you. This is what I do with my friends. And on the East Coast, we fucking shit on each other, like the worst things you could say. So we used to do that to Vinny, and he was very sensitive. And people did it to me. I was very sensitive, but he ended up passing away from either fentanyl or heroin overdose at the beginning of COVID last year. And I started to tell this story on the podcast of the details of my arrest with him, because I almost went to prison for 7 years. Did you know that? You knew that. Okay. So you knew that. So I almost went to prison for a long time. I would have just been getting out now, or 2 years ago, because I was 19. So we used to have, there used to be like weed phones or like drug phones. Someone would pass you the phone. And would give you a bunch of drugs, right? And you have to answer the phone and go drive with the drugs in your car, and like you were the driver for the day. Hold on, let that bitch breathe. And you were the driver for that day. And I used to drive around. I was working somebody's phone. I was a terrible drug dealer. I just was not like finessey. I never have a business sense. I suck at business still. Getting better, but still just not a great businessman. So I'm skirting around, driving around, and I go to Vinny's house. And stop there to smoke some blunts and just get fucked up. It's like 11:30 in the morning, because that's what you do. It's like a Sunday, So I go to Vinny's house. The phone rings. Bing, 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 bing. Bing, 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 bing. Pick up the phone. Yo, what do you need? I need 50, which is an eighth. That's an eighth was $50. So I need 50. So Vinny's like, stay right here. I'm going to go serve this dude in the back where he served me and countless others. He's been selling drugs in the same spot for like, it seemed like forever. And they were watching his house because my whole crew of people, that's what we did. We all had the same attorney. This is what we were doing. And the thing is, this life that we were living, first of all, these are white kids, by the way. So like crime on a deep level is not like when people talk about black people and like Latino people and crime being so aggressive. No, I've done horrible crimes with white people. These are, little white kids, suburban kids. None of us were really poor either. But anyway, so he went to go meet the guy. By this time, I was already eating Percocet and Vicodin and shit. He went to go meet the guy, and someone knocks on the door. So he went out. Time's passing. Someone knocks on the door. His sister opens the door because she's in the house with us, and the cops come in. Everybody on the ground. So he had like a table, those fucking tables where you eat. If you like sitting on a couch, you can like pop the table up. So he had one of those tables, and on that table in front of me were methadone, Percocet, every drug you could think of. Both of my phones, my own personal phone and the drug phone, shit tons of money, all of the ingredients of a full-blown prison stint, all of it together. So we start the whole long process of our arrest, and this was not wasn't blue and white cop cars or whatever cop car your city has that you can imagine. This is Jeep Cherokees. This is Dodge Chargers. They're here for an intention. They knew to be here. They had an intention to be here. So yeah, we get in the car. First of all, getting arrested is slow. It is slow as fuck. Everything in the judicial system is like hours. So they're driving us around for 3 hours before we even get. I might have cried, honestly, because I'm straight. I'm not a gangster, so I think I might have cried. I think even tough guys cry when they get arrested too. I think everybody wants to, at least. Not everybody cries, but they want to. It sucks. So they drove us around for like 3 hours, I guess, because it was they put us in a paddy wagon. So we're in this big van. Then we get to the precinct, and I'm fucking like, fuck, man. And here's what I tell my kids this, because my kids, they're built in Indio, where we, our other neighborhood, because I live, blah, blah, blah. Out there, they build this big jail, and it's a beautiful jail. It's like, why are y'all spending money on this big-ass jail? And you could spend money on the neighborhood. But I tell my kids, I say, hey, you never want to go in one of those places, because when they close those bars and you grab them and you feel them, you can knock it out. There's no, obviously, and mommy's not going to come. Mom's not going to come to the precinct and say, hey, let my son out. They're like, I don't give a fuck. He has to go through the process now. So we were in there. We were in holding for about a day, 24 hours or 18 hours, because you lose track of time. There's no clocks, and everything is long, and like the paperwork takes forever, and sometimes there's a shift change. So the next, or it's just like bureaucracy. So we get to Rikers. In Rikers. Oh no, we get to central bookings. They have you in one cell, but who knows how many hours? Another cell, who knows how many hours? It just days and days and days. So, hours and hours. That was probably 2 days of going through cell to cell, and we finally get to our sentencing, which is like 3 days after getting arrested. I called my mom. She knew where I was. No, I didn't. I was just missing for a couple of days. After days and days of waiting, we get to our sentencing, and the judge pulls out me, Vinny, and his sister. And they let his sister go because she was just in the house, and they look at me, and they look at Vinny, and they say, Vincent, XYZ, what his last name is, we're remanding you to Rikers Island, $100,000 bail. And I look at him and I'm like, yo, my lawyer was saying to me, because I got a public defender, I didn't think I needed to pay for a lawyer, because when I met with my lawyer, he was like, this isn't your house. So it's not your house. So you should be let off on technicality. The owner of the home or the person who we're investigating should be liable for this, right? So I'm like, I'm going home after all these days. Eric Reyes, boom. Remanded to Rikers Island, $100,000 bail, reduced to $50,000. That feeling, bro. First of all, I'm 19. I can't even fathom $100,000, right? I don't think you could say, very few people can really picture $100,000, but when I heard that, it's like you might as well said $1 billion. You know what I mean? You might as well have said $1 billion. But yeah, so I finally called my parents on our way to Rikers Island, because then guess what happens after this? Waiting. And Vinny and I went through Rikers together. We went to C95 because that's where the drug addicts go, and you can go withdraw, and they give you methadone when you get into Rikers. I didn't necessarily need it. I had enough drugs in my system to definitely warrant it, but I just wanted to take the edge off. Give me methadone, man. Give me something. I'm dying, you know. But yeah, they then you start the Rikers process, and it's for the first place they bring you is first of all, you're locked up with all these people who already start scheming on you. They're like, what house you in? Who you with? Already that process starts, and so they thank God that I got bailed out. They had me in one. They have you in one smaller cell, then a bigger cell, then a bigger cell. Then it's like a fucking cow corral. It's a big concrete room, big concrete room, toilet in the corner, concrete floors. Everybody's laying on the floor. Fuck, man. This is it. This is the fucking life we were living. This is it. I get a call. First of all, let me tell you a story about in that big cell. There was this big fat Latino dude. I don't know if he was Mexican or El Salvadorian. Meanwhile, this is C95, so everybody here is dope sick. Everybody here is on drugs. So there's shit on the floor, people shit in their pants, puke everywhere. Walking out, I stepped over a huge pile of puke. But this big Latino dude takes a shit in the toilet, shits a bunch of heroin out of his asshole, and people are sniffing dope out of this guy's asshole. Swear to God. Jarring. And look at me now. You can't imagine this. And I'm 165 pounds. I'm wearing a wife beater. I'm let me get a Newport, straight goon at the time. So far from this, But people are sniffing dope out of this guy's asshole. And I was me and Vinny were like, yo, should we sniff dope out of this guy's asshole? I'm fucking getting kind of sick, anxious as fuck. And anyway, I couldn't sleep. Well, I slept a little bit under the bench because that's what you do. Especially if you're locked up with somebody, you can sleep under the bench and they'll sleep with their feet over you, and you sleep on your shoes because it's so cold. They keep it so cold or so hot in there. Anyway, I got bailed out. My parents, I thank God I have my parents to bail me out. And got an attorney, and I'm not in prison. And I didn't have to tell anybody. Thank God. But yeah, man. Anyway, Vinny passed away last year, and so I don't tell these stories in detail because it's why? You know what I mean? Why tell them? But I'm doing it right now because it provides perspective. So you hear me and you hear me talking about the books that I'm talking about, or think concepts of fucking spirituality and meditation, all this shit. That's not who I am. That is not the person I am. I'm go to prison guy. I'm drug addict guy. Smoke cigarettes off the floor guy. So that's the perspective I'm coming from. Now that we've done that, what time is it? That's 15 minutes? 20 minutes. Okay. This is going to go super perfect. This is today's topic. I got a little poem here. We are what our deep driving desire is. Our deep driving desire is, so as our will. As our will, so is our deed. As our deed, so is our destiny. Boom, bars. Let's start there. But I'm reading the Dhammapada right now. And this year, I'm being very intentional about my entire life. Being very intentional about my entire life right now. I'm not phoning it in. And on a podcast that's not getting released, that Benny and Jesse and I did, we talked about like intention, because usually the guys and I set an intention every year. So for me, I talked about it. It was spiritual growth, and that happened, and emotional health, and that happened. And this year is an abundance, but like the abundance. How many podcasts are about abundance? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it right now. It's one of those trigger words. But when I say abundance, I'm not talking about money. Money is, of course, included in there because I do deserve to be compensated for the skills and abilities that I have. So does Matt. So do you. So does everybody else. Everybody deserves to be compensated rightfully for their skills and their knowledge and their experience and their professional background. So I deserve to be compensated. I deserve abundance. I had this poor person's mentality that because of the story I just told you, I didn't deserve to have money because I was like paying back karmic consequences, right? Like I didn't deserve to have a happy relationship. I didn't deserve a good life because of the life that I lived before, which I'm finding is not true. And even if those karmic consequences are true, I'm choosing to no longer participate in the fucked up, shitty karmic consequences. I deserve a good life, which saying what I deserve, got to be careful of that. Throwback to last year's podcast, what you deserve is sometimes bullshit, right? But anyway, reading this book and something that's going to be abundant this year is spiritual growth. And again, on the last podcast, I talked about reading a ton this year. But in regards to being a student and being in abundance spiritually, that means learning all year. That means learning all year, and that's going to look differently. That's going to be listening to podcasts from besides Joe Rogan, besides funny podcasts, right? It's going to be consuming more intellectually stimulating content. It's going to be reading more. It's going to be challenging myself spiritually. It's going to be challenging my client spiritually. I have a client who just came on, just onboarded, and we're going to read a text that challenges her faith practice. Not trying to convert her, but it's going to challenge it. And we're going to read this text together, and we're going to break it down. We're going to do word association, as I already do on this podcast. We're going to break things down. We're going to see where it challenges her, as well as business goals and all that other stuff. We're going to have a theme to start to start our process. So, reading this book right now just has really, not challenged me, but opened me up to the real religious text, as opposed to the New Age. That's annoying. As opposed to like the quote unquote New Age kind of thing that people are into right now. You could probably hear that whole drinking on there. That's fine. And my did you hear that? That was my voice, my windpipe just did a thing. But yeah, reading this, there's a lot of dope shit in there, and I can't even pronounce this guy's fucking name, man. But I'll put it in the description, the translation I'm reading. But there's so much good in there. But challenging your spiritual life is just it's a discipline. We talked about that all the time. But let's talk about my life actually, and relationships. I don't really talk about relationships too much, because I have such a bad track record in relationships. Everybody's saying, let's be real. Let's be vulnerable. First of all, the story I told you can't get any more vulnerable than that. Can't get any more real than that. Aaron Moore's podcast, you can't get any more real than that. Right, Matt? That was fucking heavy. If you haven't listened, go back to, I think, episode 159 or 160 with Aaron Moore. And if you think your life is hard, you think you can't do it, shut the fuck up. but I don't talk about relationships because I have such a bad experience with them. They're hard, man. They're hard. They're hard. And, you know, so on a communicative level, right? Like it's so when you first meet someone, you have this experience where I feel like you're chemically drawn to this person, right? Like your hormones and her pheromones are linking you two together, whether it be just physical attraction, whether it be on a primal, like whether that physical attraction is on a primal level, like she'd be a great breeding partner, whatever the attract level is. So you have this initial attraction, and that initial attraction, your testosterone will lie to you and will make you feel pretty like, I'm in love with this person. I know every guy has felt that. And, you know, girls say like, oh, why did he fuck me and not talk to me again? Because his testosterone told him that he would like you a lot, and he realized he wouldn't like you a lot once he fucked you, right? That's fucked up, but it's true. How many times does that happen where you're like, I really like this person, you have sex with, you're like, fuck, I don't like them. You know, I just wanted to have sex with them. And is that cognitive? Is that wanting to fuck them cognitive, or is that biological? Saying it's biological would be a cop out, and women would be fucking hella mad at that. Is it true? Is it biological? Probably a little bit. There are some guys who are being opportunists, right? And who are like, I'm going to fuck her and never talk to her again. But I think a lot of the time, at least my experience in my past, I've been like, damn, this girl's the shit. I like her so much. She's so cool. And then you fuck her. You're like, she's not cool at all. She's not cool at all, you know? But anyway, when you're in a relationship, you pass that phase where you're like, you know, biologically, that biological drive, that sexual drive, and the person, you may end up liking this person as a human being. You like this person as a human being. So for me, I get to that point where I, you know, meet someone who I really like as a human being, but we talk about sex addiction. And the reason I don't talk about my relationship is because I was fully enthralled in a sex addiction in the first couple of years of my relationship. And I don't talk about it in detail because for her sake, because it would probably make her upset. But we're talking about being real. We talk about being honest. And some people, you can never recover from cheating. And some people will even say sex addiction is not real. Some people will even, like, I listen to a bunch of podcasts. Brendan Schaub on Fighter and Kid, he'll be like, people who say they're sex addicts just do. You hear that a lot from dudes. They're like, you're just a dude. You just want to fuck a lot. And I promise you, from someone who's in sex addiction recovery, it's not about busting nuts. It's not about, like, a lot of times, like, the ejaculating, the orgasm is the byproduct of the addictive behavior, you know? And in the first couple of years of my relationship, I just need, and this is where I talk about, and it's, your boy is real on here, son. When I talk about seeking the world, I've talked about seeking the world ad nauseum on this podcast, because for years, I thought this girl was going to make me happy. I had this partner at home. She's pregnant or about to be pregnant. Then she's raising my son. And I'm thinking, this girl's going to make me happy, or this girl's going to make me happy. Not the sex part. Some of these people had sex with them once, just had sex with them once, but they were the person, the interaction is what I thought was going to make me happy. It was going to fulfill me. And I sought that for about a year and a half, and I hurt my partner and devastated her to the point where we're just trying to figure out what a relationship looks like. We don't even know what this shit looks like. Man, so that's why I don't talk about relationships. And that's why I even said in the beginning of the podcast, I don't even think she likes me very much. I don't really think she likes me very much. And that's not even her fault, because she liked me plenty. She liked me plenty. Should she leave me? Probably, you know, probably. So I'm very grateful for her that she even gives me a shot still, you know. But that's why I don't talk about relationships on here, because they're so fucking hard. And, you know, that's why I briefly, with brushstrokes, talk about sex addiction, because that's just hard. Actually wanted to have, I will this year have a sex addiction therapist on here to speak about the entire process. Because there's so many, I've been in so many rooms of men full of sex addicts. I've met thousands, to the point where I've met pedophiles. I've met rapists. I've met all of them. And this is I've met people and be like, you're a nice guy. You know, This guy, this guy got caught watching kiddie porn, and he got arrested and convicted and all that. And I'm in this meeting with him for a year every day. I'm in there because I like fucking a lot of people. He's in there because of kiddie porn, but you hear him share every day in this meeting around the table like this. You hear him say, "Hi, I'm so and so, and I'm a sex addict," and you hear the despair in his voice. You hear the brokenness in his voice. You hear his story. You hear all these things, and you're like, "Fuck, man. Of course you're a piece of shit because you like kiddie porn." But also, sex addicts, I think, are the most tortured by addiction, because sex it's biological. It's this drive that is natural, quote unquote natural. But then you have all these imprints that have happened to you through life. And a lot of times I talked to my therapist about it. I was like, so what's it like working with sex addicts? And most of these guys, they don't like, a lot of guys who like young girls, they don't like that they like that. They hate that they like that, but someone fucked with them as a kid, or, and here's what I talk about porn. Here's why I don't watch porn, is because, and this is the process for a lot of guys who like kids. It starts out with regular porn, right? You're sneaking, young guy, maybe teenager, as most of us were. In a lot of sex addiction cases that are younger than that, have been sexualized younger than that. I was, molested when I was 6. So I was already sexualized as a little tiny kid, and had this whole process all the way into my teens. But for a lot of these guys, that's their story as well. They were sexualized as children, and then they get into their porn watching phase, and they're watching regular porn, right? They're watching, straight old porn, good old fashioned porno. And then they push it. And then it's the girls who look young. And there's a whole section. If I type in Pornhub right now, teen porn, Riley Reid will come up, right? Like these like girls who are age, ambivalent. They could be 18 or they can be 25. A lot like Riley Reid's probably 26, right? But she looks excessively young because she's small, skinny, small boobs. So it starts there. Okay, so you've been watching this teen porn. Who knows how long it's been? And then where do you go from there? Now you start, maybe you come across a real teenager popping up before it gets pulled off of YouPorn or before it gets pulled off of Pornhub. Now you've pushed your threshold. Same thing with a heroin addict. I started out as on ecstasy and Percocet, ended up as a heroin addict. The threshold has been pushed and pushed. The things you said you wouldn't do, you're now doing. So now this guy who was sexualized as a kid, hated that part about himself, was watching teen porn. That was okay. It was on the internet. Now he's found some dark shit. Now he's pushing the threshold. Now he needs the dark shit to come. So it's like when we say that sex addiction isn't real, I've sat across from these guys and I have my own experience where this is the reason I don't watch porn, is because for me, big booty white girls did it for a long time. And mine didn't get violent. It didn't get like super weird, but it just went to places that I wasn't proud of. And I was breaking my own value system. Nothing illegal. Don't worry. You can use your imagination. I'm down. I don't care about being judged. Said some wild shit on here already, but the boundaries get pushed. The boundaries get pushed. So if you don't think sex addiction is a real thing, I've sat in front of these men. I know men. I have another friend of mine who was molested as a kid. He identified as gay, but didn't want to identify as gay. He hated that he was gay. Hated it. Hated it. It was 38 still in the closet because he hated this about himself because he grew up in the church. What he ended up doing is he would drink to hook up with guys because he didn't like that he was gay, but he had to like lubricate himself in order to do it. He was at a like bachelor party, got blackout drunk and like molested his adult male friend. Is he a piece of shit for molesting his adult male friend? Yeah, but this is a tortured man, right? This is a man who hates his existence and was told his existence was wrong, and it just pushed him to that place where he did something he never thought he'd do. So I say this to say that in my relationship, the reason I don't talk about relationships is because being in a relationship with a sex addict is chaos. And I don't talk about my partner because I don't know how she does it. This is not something I actively do. This is not like I'm fucking hookers and on porn and like in this deep, dark seated thing. But she's constantly worried. The trust isn't there. There's just so many. It's so difficult. It's so easy to like, you think of podcast topics, right? You think of podcast topics and like, what are the big ones? You talk about fucking abundance. You talk about spirituality. You talk about this. Then relationships come up and I just haven't talked about it for like a year, just never talked about it. But they're challenging, man. And last year when I talked about emotional health, I talked about my sexual trauma last year. Talked about it in a lot of detail. Not that much detail, but detail enough, I think. I think enough detail. Enough that I remember and feel like it's covered thoroughly. But I forgot my point. I'm gonna let that bitch breathe. When I talked about emotional health last year, a lot of what I worked on was this sex addiction, man. This sex addiction. It was this navigating this because it's a real thing, and I'm nervous about putting this podcast out. Actually, I'm nervous about putting this one out because my partner put up with a lot. She put up with a lot. And I had, everybody's doing the best they can with what they can, right? Everybody is, even me when I was doing what I was doing, everybody's making their best choice. Even a heroin addict shooting dope, that's his best choice. You don't think about it like that, right? You think he's out like trying to hurt people. Like, from the outside perspective, my mom's like, my family's like, you tortured us, like I went missing and I was in jail for fucking 2-3 days and they had no idea where I was. Phone was off. And like, think of what your family feels like. But everything I was doing was just surviving. I was just doing what I needed to do in order to be okay. And that's why when Corey George asked me, and then in this leadership process that I'm going through, they asked me, what would you tell your younger self? And it'll always be the same, is that you're okay. That's what I would tell myself 5 years ago when I was, not even 5 years, was that? When I was, 3 years ago when I was deep in the sex addiction, what would I tell myself is that you're okay, man. You're okay, dude. And that's what my sex addiction therapist and I worked on a lot last year, is that you're okay. So for you, and me and Mike Dunn scratched the surface a little bit about it, but if you're struggling with porn, male or female, if you know someone who's infidel, we used to call them, they call them philanderers or womanizers, he may not like that he's like that. He may not like that he has never had a healthy relationship. He may not enjoy that. He may have accepted that as his truth, but he may not enjoy that. I don't think a lot of men do. Because I will tell you that now, when I'm with my family, putting my son to bed, and just laying on the couch watching Captain Phillips with my fucking girl, that's better than sleeping with a bunch of people. It is. And that's why I talk, seeking the world, finding, and there's a quote that's going to tie all this bitch together. Serenity and stability are results of your choices and judgments, not your environment. That's a callback and a half. I saw serenity and security and stability in the world, man. Women and the lustful natures there. I found security there, and it didn't work, and I hurt other people in the process. So that's why I don't talk about how are we doing on time? 40. Perfect. We're gonna wrap it up there, but that's why I don't talk about relationships, because I struggle, and I think many of us do. And this is just talking about that piece, but then we talk about the communication, different communication styles, right? Like, my partner and I come from different backgrounds. She's little white girl from the desert, and I'm big black dude from New York City, drug addict, like city kid, just come from different, I don't know how much more different your backgrounds can be, so those are, values are playing a part. Thankfully I come from, my parents have been married 35 years, so it's not like I grew up in a broken home. My siblings are successful. You've heard me talk about them. I grew up with a stable life, but just off of ethnicity and culture, my partner and I come from something very different. So now you're dealing with my baggage, her baggage, because she has her baggage too. That's hers. I would never talk about her baggage on here, but she has hers. I have mine. So you're bringing her baggage, my trauma, her trauma, my culture, her culture, the world around us, business and finance, 2 children. It's a lot. That's why I don't talk about relationships, because hey, man. Fuck, it's heavy, dude. It's a lot, man. It's a lot to unpack. And that's why, I don't think we give that enough value. I don't think we give that enough value of how hard relationships are, but you stick it out. And, if you love a person, if you love the person, you work it out. And that's why some people get married and stay married 30 years. And that's why some people only date for a year, when that lustful thing ends, and it's you and that person, working it out. So that was a podcast about nothing. We bounced around there, but I got honest, told the truth. I'm going to listen to this tomorrow and I'm going to regret so much of it, but who gives a fuck, man? Who cares? Live life recklessly. I've done podcasts on that too. Be messy. So I'm being messy tonight. And this is what happens when we record at fucking 4 PM. I had whole notes here. I had a page of notes. In the morning, I can stay on these notes. And this afternoon, none of this made sense in this context. None of this made sense today. Fucking almost 2 pages of notes. But we took it off the rails here today. But anyway, if you want coaching from my psycho ass, if you want me to coach you, go to bigmoodcoach.com. If you listen to the whole thing, subscribe and rate. And if you want to see my home, watch it on YouTube and share all this shit. We're being honest here. So podcast about nothing. We're out here.